In less than 2 weeks, millions of Americans who've been locked out of the insurance market are finally going to be able to get quality health care. Good jobs that pay good wages, an education that prepares our kids for a global economy, a home that is secure, affordable health care that is there when you get sick, a secure retirement even if you're not rich. All those things that make for a secure life. So you can raise your kids and have confidence that they're going to do better than you did. That's what I'm focused on. That's what you're focused on. That's what Congress should be focused on. Which brings me to the current situation. Let me talk a little bit about what's going on back in Washington. Right now, Congress is in the middle of a budget debate. Now, there's nothing new about that. You know, every year, Congress got to pass a budget, and it's always a contentious, process. But right now, our recovery still needs to build more strength. So it's important that we get it right in Washington. Because even though our success as a country is ultimately going to depend on great businesses like Ford, hard workers like you, government has to do some things. Congress has to pass a budget to make sure our education system works and prepares our kids and our workers for the global economy. What Congress is doing right now is important. Unfortunately, right now the debate that's going on in Congress is not meeting the test of helping middle-class families. It's just, they're not focused on you. They're focused on politics. They're focused on trying to mess with me. They're not focused on you. They're not focused on you. So there are two deadlines coming up that Congress has to meet. And I want folks to pay attention to this. Congress has to meet two deadlines, and they're coming up pretty quick. The first deadline, the most basic constitutional duty Congress has is to pass a budget. That's Congress 101. If they don't pass a budget by September 30th, what's the date today? The 20th. All right, so if Congress doesn't pass a budget in 10 days, a week from Monday, the government will shut down. A government shutdown shuts down many services that the American people rely on. This is not abstract. Hundreds of thousands of Americans will not be allowed to go to work. Our men and women in uniform, even those deployed overseas, won't get their paychecks on time. Small businesses, they won't get their loans processed. Now, none of that has to happen as long as Congress passes a budget. Number one, passing a budget. Number two, in the next few weeks, Congress must vote to allow the Department of the Treasury to pay America's bills. All right? Our Treasury Department, that's where we take in money and we pay it, right? Real simple. This is usually done with a simple, routine vote to raise what's called the debt ceiling. If you don't raise the debt ceiling, America can't pay its bills. Since the 1950s, Congress has always passed it. Every president has signed it. Democrats, Republicans, Ronald Reagan, Lyndon Johnson, it doesn't matter. This is just a routine thing that you got to do so that Treasury can pay the bills. If Congress doesn't pass this debt ceiling in the next few weeks, the United States will default on its obligations. That's never happened in American history. Basically, America becomes a deadbeat. If the world sees America not paying its bills, then they will not buy debt, treasury bills, from the United States, or if they do, they'll do it at much higher interest rates. That means somebody wanting to buy an F-150 will have to pay much higher interest rates eventually, which means you will sell less cars. That's just one example of how profoundly destructive this could be. This is not some abstract thing. And this is important. Raising the debt ceiling is not the same as approving more spending. Any more than making your monthly payments adds to the total cost of your truck. You don't say, well, I'm not going to pay my bill, my note for my truck because I'm going to save money. No, you're not saving money. You already bought the truck, right? You have to pay the bills. You're not saving money. You might have decided at the front end not to buy the truck, but once you bought the truck, you can't say you're saving money just by not paying the bills. Does that make sense? So raising the debt ceiling, it doesn't cost a dime. It does not add a penny to our deficits. All it says is you got to pay for what Congress already said we're spending money on. If you don't do it, we could have another financial crisis. And the fact is, I know a lot of people are concerned about deficits. Our deficits are now coming down so quickly, but that by the end of this year, we will have cut them in more than half since I took office. Cut deficits in half. So I just want to break this down one more time. I go into a Ford dealership, drive off with a new F-150. Unless I paid cash, I've still got to pay for it each month. I can't just say, you know, I'm not going to make my car payment this month. That's what Congress is threatening to do, just saying I'm not going to pay the bills. There are consequences to that. The bill collector starts calling you, right? Your credit goes south, and you got all kinds of problems. Same is true for a country. So if we don't raise the debt ceiling, we're deadbeats. If we fail to increase the debt limit, we would send our economy into a tailspin. That's a quote, by the way, what I just said. You know who said it? The Republican Speaker of the House, John Boehner. The Republican Speaker has said if we don't pay our bills, we'll have an economic tailspin. So this is not just my opinion, this is everybody's opinion. All right. Now, why haven't we already gotten it done if it's such a simple thing? Everybody's nodding. They're all like, yeah, why didn't we already get this done? Democrats and some reasonable Republicans in Congress are willing to raise the debt ceiling and pass a sensible budget. And I want to work with Democrats and Republicans to do just that. Claire McCaskill, she's ready to do it. Congressman Cleaver, he's ready to do it. And if we just pass the budget, raise the debt ceiling, we can get back to focusing on growing this economy and creating jobs, educating our kids, all the things we got to do. Unfortunately, there is a faction on the far right of the Republican Party right now. It's not everybody, but it's a pretty big faction who've convinced their leadership to threaten a government shutdown and potentially threaten to not raise the debt ceiling if they can't shut off the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Now think about this. They're not talking now about spending cuts. They're not talking about entitlement reform. They're not talking about any of that. Now they're talking about something that has nothing to do with the budget, right? They're actually willing to plunge America into default if we can't defund the Affordable Care Act. Now let's put this in perspective. The Affordable Care Act has been in the law for 3.5 years. It passed both houses of Congress. Supreme Court ruled it constitutional. It was an issue in last year's elections. The guy who was running against me said he was going to repeal it. We won. So, the voters were pretty clear on this, and then Republicans in Congress, they've tried to repeal or sabotage this more than 40 times. They've had these repeal votes. Every time they failed. This law that is in place is already providing people benefits. It's not holding back economic growth. It's helping millions of Americans, including some of you or your family members that you may not be aware of. You can keep your kid on your own health insurance plan, somebody's raising their hand right here, until they're 26 because of the Affordable Care Act. Which is one of the main reasons why the number of uninsured among young people has gone down over the last 3 years. Seniors, they are benefiting right now from discounted prescription drug costs because of the law. If you've got health insurance, insurance companies can't impose lifetime limits on you. They can't use the fine print not to pay for if you get sick. Insurance companies have to spend 80% of your premiums on your health care, not on administrative costs and CEO bonuses. Those are happening right now. And health care costs have actually increased at the slowest rate in 50 years. So this is helping to reduce health care costs across the economy. Finally, starting on October 1st, it's going to help millions of more people. People who don't have health insurance right now, what it's going to do is we're going to set up pools so that just like a worker at Ford can benefit from good insurance rates because you got a lot of workers in one big pool, now people who don't have the good fortune to work at a big company like Ford, they can also get a good deal. Now, that's what they're fighting for. They want to repeal all that. And they're saying, we're going to hold our breath, and if you don't repeal it, which I've already said I'm not going to do, we're going to send the economy into default. They will send our economy into a tailspin, just like Speaker Boehner said. They want to threaten default just to make sure that tens of millions of Americans continue not to have health care. Defunding affordable health care would rob 25 million Americans of the chance to get health care coverage. It would cut basic health care services for tens of millions of seniors on Medicare already. That's what House Republicans are fighting for. And now they've gone beyond just holding Congress hostage, they're holding the whole country hostage. One Republican senator called shutting down the government over the Affordable Care Act the dumbest idea I've ever heard. I agree with him. But that's the strategy they're pursuing. House of Representatives just voted on it today. Now, I tell you what, Missouri, the American people have worked too hard for too long, digging out of a real crisis just to let politicians in Washington cause another crisis. This is the United States of America. We're not some banana republic. This is not a deadbeat nation. We don't run out on our tab. We're the world's bedrock investment. The entire world looks to us to make sure the world economy is stable. We can't just not pay our bills. And even threatening something like that is the height of irresponsibility. So what I've said is, I will not negotiate over the full faith and credit of the United States. I am not going to allow anyone to harm this country's reputation. I'm not going to allow them to inflict economic pain on millions of our own people just so they can make an ideological point. But I need you to help. I need you to help tell Congress, pay our bills on time, pass a budget on time, stop governing from crisis to crisis, put our focus back on where it should be, on you, the American people, on creating new jobs, on growing our economy, on restoring security for middle-class families. That's what you deserve. I mean, I don't know. It's like they do this every 6 months. Isn't it? I mean, I don't mind them disagreeing with me. They don't like the Affordable Care Act. They'd rather have people not have health insurance. You know, I'm happy to have that debate with them. But you don't have to threaten to blow the whole thing up just because you don't get your way. Right?